All right, back down here in the Chiefs Pit, we got some special guests. Got Billy Biscoe and Rick Potter. They was part of the 1974 season, so we're going to let them teach us some good stories and stuff of what happened in 1974. So we're going to let Billy, going to let you start off here. You got a good story about that seat there, don't you?
Well, I do, Richie, because I was fortunate enough to be involved in 1974 as a fabricator at Petty Enterprises. And one unique thing about Richard back then is he always wanted a different seat every season, partly because his body was constantly changing of the contour of his rib cage. And if you'll notice, the contours are constantly changed on the back of the sides of these seats according to his body contour. And these are all hand fabbed out of aluminum. And I would cut a cardboard pattern of his body shape and draw it out and make that formed out of aluminum and heliarc it all together. And without padding, we would do a trial run and make a customized prototype, and then after his initial fit, make a final adjustments, and then pad and make more adjustments to figure out what improvements it would help to make him more comfortable in the car.
Now, was you here, like, was it 75 when he wrecked at Bristol and broke his ribs, and they had to put that? Or,
Yes,
yes. Did you have to make any special adjustments to the
we
seat?
did. We did. We've done a lot more concave on this side over here for his support bandage. It was almost like a flight jacket that they had put him in to protect his rib cage. So this had to come out a little bit to allow for support for that flight jacket.
I can't imagine breaking your ribs and then having to go run these cars with the G-force to the side. He had to be in pain every single lap, didn't he?
Men were tougher then.
Yes,
I mean, they were just tough. That's all I can say.
Good point.
But you had to make adjustments even then for the flap jackets and stuff, right?
Well, my adjustment was pretty simple. I put a porta power back in this corner and just pushed on this edge right here. And he kind of laughed at me a little bit. He said, "You're ruining my seat. You're ruining my seat." And I was just doing small adjustments because I didn't want to overextend it. I just wanted to make him comfortable. Because if he's not comfortable, he's not going to do a good job in a race car.
And as you're going in the racing, if you're not fitting in there real good, you're pulling yourself over. So the more that you don't have to pull yourself over, you're not wearing yourself out.
Well, that's exactly right, Richie, because the G-forces are throwing you to the right to start with. And here we got weekend at Bristol coming up, and everybody's going to be extremely tired after 5 laps at Bristol.
At least.
Well, in wrestling, how much these cars weigh?
Was it 3,400 pounds?
3,400
Yeah.
pounds back in this era.
Yep.
Now,
all in the front.
It's all in that Hemi.
and Uncle Richard, you give him some duct tape or the electrical tape, and he used to fix his steering wheels. They had to have the right feel for him, didn't
Before we recovered that seat, it had that duct tape.
In this particular instance, this is a stock production 3-spoke Chrysler wheel. But to help him get a better grip with his palm of his hands and his long fingers, he wrapped this thing with a foam tape and then electric tape around it for the cushion. He also padded the spokes, as you can tell, in case of a crash. The worst part about it is you always palm the wheel instead of putting your fingers around it, because when those spokes spun on impact, you didn't want that thing to snap and hit your fingers or your thumbs, because it would break them.
But he would wrap them.
Oh yeah, he personally done all this himself.
Yep.
All the way up till he
Right.
retired. I
Yes.
remember. Yeah.
He had to have
And that
that
was
certain
done by him.
Yes,
Yeah. He physically.
he
done it.
he physically wanted his own personal wrap, and if you look at the way he wrapped them, it was in a certain direction, so that it was always what I'll call with the grain.
Yep.
Anything else you want to
Yeah,
add?
oh, yeah, go ahead.
No,
Billy still got
No,
one. What, since we got Potterman here today,
Yeah, you got anything?
well, I want to, like in '74, you went down to Daytona and you had the big block in it, and then you had a little story about you guys had to dig the stuff out of the junkyard to get the TA blocks or X blocks or whatever. But tell the story about you was telling before we started with the cameras about John Coble and Dad having a conversation.
Yeah, there was only so many of the, what they call the TA blocks,
Small block.
small blocks,
Yeah.
that were available. And so people were actually buying cars because I think the AAR Barracudas and some kind of a Dodge had those motors in it.
Yes, sir.
And so people would buy those cars to get those blocks out of it and put just a regular one in and sell it. So, but that was because they had 4-bolt mains and they were thicker and so on and so forth. But so that was pretty big deal to find them. But at any rate, so we got some of them and we were going to
Experiment with them.
experiment with them. And your dad said, well, he said, we're going to be running them things next year. And the motor builder at the time was here. He said, ain't no way we're ever going to run them little things. And guess what? Next year we were right.
Full time.
Yep.
Small block.
Small block.
I love that story.
But they were,
Well, you guys, I know we've talked about, we've covered it before, but you actually dug the first one, like Wilkesboro was the first race for the small block in '74.
yeah,
Same season.
right,
And you guys dug it out and had been working on it for longer than that.
right.
It just, that's all the availability you had to it. But actually went and won the first race.
Yes.
Right,
Out the box.
Wilkesboro.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Daddy saying that he thought there ain't no way that thing's gonna make it all day. It's gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it didn't. And
Yeah.
I guess the rest.
Well, I mean, other people had to have them too.
Right.
Also, I've heard people say they used to qualify with a big block, and then you put the small block in because the small block wasn't good enough to make the whole race and qualifying, et cetera.
That could
Is
be,
that true?
I don't know, I never
I
went to the
think
race.
Joey Harrington was telling us that.
But,
thought he
but
used to.
you and I were at that Wilkesboro race when that motor won that race.
That's true,
Right.
and somewhere along that conversation, either on the way to the racetrack or during the race, somebody made a comment about water and water pressure in that block. Now, whether that was a weak block or something with the cylinder heads or water passageways,
Well, you were just talking about a sleeve too leaking out of the bottom. Was that
Yeah.
a small block?
Yeah, there was a small block. They Chrysler ended up with some hard sleeves that they put in with the machinists would.
but all I can remember is there was a water issue with the TA block.
Yeah. Yeah, they we got back. We had to go to Martinsville the next race. We only had one motor, so we had to take the pistons. I had one set of pistons, so we took the pistons out and zyglode the pistons and magnaflux the rods and this that, and that. Well, was bringing them back from the over there at the shop with the magnaflux machine and the light toward stuff that you could check it. And so I was coming over to the motor room. There was a big sink there. I was going to rinse all the stuff off of it. And Curtis Wright, who was the machinist, come up behind me and juked me. And I thought, this is going to be good. All those pistons are going up in the air, and we ain't got but one set. And I thought, what am I going to tell Maurice when all the pistons are laying on the concrete floor? And I got mad at Curtis, and he went down and told the chief later. He said, Rick got mad at me, and then chief come out. I heard you got mad at Curtis. I said, yeah. I said, we only had one set of pistons in the world. He come up there and juked me when I had a thing full of them, and taking them over to rinse them off in the sink there to get them ready to put in the next motor.
Oh, me.
It ain't like you had spares. That was the
No,
only
we didn't have
ones.
anything. And then later on, they did come with some better. We had stock rods on them motors. We had to grind them and then shot peen them.
Right.
That's all
That
we
was
had.
one of my first jobs here, was shop cleaning them and crankshaft.
Yep.
Now, with the small block, you got a weight break, right? Because if you run the big motor, then
You had to pull
you
weight.
had to pull more weight. So that was why they were wanting for the short track program, because you could run a little bit lighter.
Right.
Yeah, but
They were coming with it
I-
anyway.
I-
unfortunately, some of the handling people that worked here, they couldn't figure that out, so they would add weight to it, so it weighed the same as what the Hemi did.
Oh.
And I always thought to myself, why in the world on God's green earth would you do that? people were crying to get the weight off the front end of the car.
Oh, and they added it back.
They added it back so they could set the car up the
Yeah,
same
it's mathematically
as the handle.
correct.
At the end of the day, they won the race, so I guess, yeah.
That's right.
Was there anything good to eat at Wilkesboro? But I don't ever remember concessions.
Yeah, Martinsville had the hot dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we always, Mama and that and all that, they always took the picnic lunches.
You take Stanley's barbecue,
Yeah, and fried chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, ham biscuit, country ham biscuits.
You sure didn't eat Holly Farms.
Oh, no, you couldn't eat that. Not in the 70s.
That was Junior's stuff.
Although it was good.
Yeah.
No, it was
Martha
great.
Jane would make persimmon pudding every once. in a while.
Oh, yeah, she
Yeah,
still
that was-
does
that
to
was a
this
big
day.
Because yeah, that was an hour and a half from here, right?
Oh, yeah.
So everybody always showed up, the whole crowd did. So that was a good family reunion type deal for us.
It was a tailgate party from hell when it was the Petty got up there.
We didn't know what tailgate party was, but we
But
were
on the same,
doing
but on
Yeah,
the
we
same
were doing
weekend,
it. Yeah.
it was a big deal to go up there and beat Junior John.
Oh, it was.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right, because ain't that where,
In his
Yeah, that's where the
backyard.
fight was.
yeah, that's where the fight was, and good gosh.
There's a lot of monumental things happening.
Bobby Allison, God, he was really
Do you-
good there, yeah.
Do you all remember when they had the water in the left side tires up there? Junior did.
Nah, I do not.
Yeah. Do you remember that, Billy?
Tell it. We might as well.
Well, I don't know for sure, but they had put water in the left side tires, I think it was, to get some left side weight on the car. But they qualified with it. Well, then at that time you had to start the race with the tires you qualified. So they started the race with it. Well, they come in for the first pit stop, and the guys that was changing the tires, all of them had hernias for trying to get them water-filled tires off the car.
Yeah, you know.
But I think they won the race that day, whenever that happened, and because they always had a kind of an in up there, the juniors.
Oh, that was home.
That was
That's
it.
right.
Town, man.
Yeah, that was home. That's why it was such a big deal to beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we won that thing, I think was Caleb. Did Caleb like drive for
I can't
junior?
remember who
74?
got back then.
Yeah, I don't have to go look.
I think he'd had some issues with something, steering or something. I couldn't remember.
What
now.
year did they run them Carling cars where Earl Ross from Canada?
75 or 6.
It would have been 75.
Because they went to Holly Farms and then
70, yeah. I don't know. That's something to look up. sometime.
y'all can look it
I
up.
bet
and run
somebody
us
will
down.
write in and tell us.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. We're struggling with this part.
Well, I was 5 years old, so I don't know nothing.
Well, anyway, I'm going to add to this.
Yeah.
We just got the headers to stay. We're down to about 4 or 5 line items on this car. It just, ironically, both these guys stopped in at the same time.
The
Thanks
Denton
for
connection.
stopping
Yeah, appreciate
Who's
you.
going to mount the seat?
by. We got a guy in there named Chad Tiger's going to do that. He's dying to because that's what he does officially.
He works at RCR.
Yeah.
So I don't have to come back.
Well, you
No, we
can.
need you to
Well,
supervise.
you can. I mean, we need supervisual powers.
Yeah.
Was he the one I met in
Yeah,
here?
he's in there now.
We need you to come supervise, and maybe we'll have some fried chicken that
Yeah,
day.
maybe.
Ooh.
I could stand the chicken, but I can't stand climbing in and out the window anymore.
All right.
Well, you don't have to do a climb.
You just sit here and point.
All right. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to have some more stuff coming up.
Wave at the camera.
Like and subscribe. Come back and see us.
Thank y'all.